All right, so this is purely my opinion, and I hope you don't add or subtract from what I'm going to say. So let's get into it. There has been an enormous advancement of brothers and sisters moving back to the African continent, depending on what country you go to, and they are documenting their experiences, which is very, very captivating. It is very interesting. It is something refreshing, and it's just what it is. It's brought a lot of awakening into those living in the diaspora, which is great. But I have one or two things I want to share with brothers and sisters moving back to the African continent. And this is purely my opinion. Don't take from my words, don't add to it, and don't subtract from it. How interesting will it be when you move to a country like Ghana and learn how to speak one of the languages? Ewe, Twi, Gan, whatever language you can lay hands on. How interesting will that be if you learn how to speak just one? I'm not talking about learning the basics like bra, babie, va, vamidunu, nigboya. I'm not talking about the basic language to keep you going. I'm talking about you speaking the language fluently. There's a lot of there's a lot of people living in the diaspora who have moved back home and doing wonderful things. But I'm yet to hear somebody speaking one of the African languages fluently. Okay. How about when you go, you show us the food you eat? How about you show us the culture? A lot of people want to dive into the spirituality of the African continent. Okay. Let me just move from the whole African continent because it's a huge continent. You have about how many? About 54 or whatever, 55 countries, 54 solid countries in Africa. So let me focus on Ghana. You may have somebody moving to Ghana and they so much want to dive into the spirituality. Okay, they want to find themselves. So they go to all these shrines. They go to a lot of places to seek information just to find themselves. And I tell you, there is an enormous information out there. You may think you're laying hands on the right information, but there is an enormous information out there. So y'all be careful. Be careful of how you try to find yourself when you go to the African continent. So a lot of these stories you hear or they tell you are folklores. Some of them may be real, some of them may not be real. So be very, very careful where you seek your information, because information is very powerful. Okay, information can make and unmake you. So when you go, be very careful of where you go to seek certain information. Okay, on the other side, if you want to dive into what we call the spirituality on the African continent, you have to be strong. You have to be extremely careful. Extremely careful. Because whatever you call, whatever you answer to, effects, positive or negative. So this is my honest and my purest of an advice that I'll give to you. if you want to dive into the spirituality when you go to Ghana, why don't you learn one of the languages? Why don't you learn, one of the dialects? Okay, depending on where you want to find yourself. So let's say you go to the Volta region and you want to find yourself. Why don't you learn how to speak the language first? Learn how to communicate before you dive into the spirituality. Because when you go, I can promise you the gods are not going to speak English. The gods are not going to speak English to you. Well, that's just my opinion. Okay. I don't have any answers when it comes to the spirituality, the African traditional religion. I don't have any experience, so I'm not going to dive too much into that. But all I am saying is that the gods are not going to speak English. So please learn how to speak the language of the people. Learn how to eat their food. Learn their culture. Learn the traditions before you move into the spiritualities, if that is what you are interested in. Be very, very mindful. Okay, a lot of people just want to rush into trying to find themselves, so they rush into the shrines, they rush into certain traditions, into doing certain baths. You don't understand what you're doing. Learn the language, communicate with the people, do your background research, seek informations, talk to a lot of people. Most of the people who have the answers to the questions you have are people who unfortunately may not be able to speak English. So learn the language, go into the communities, look for these spiritual heads, go to them, talk to them, let them understand your mission, and ask questions and come up with your own, answers or assumptions. Seek information first before you dive into spiritualities, because there are some things when you dive into it, going back, you dive into it and there's no going back. Or even if there's any going back, it may cost you. It's going to cost you an arm or a leg. It's going to cost you a lot just for you to reverse certain things that you have done. So when you go, seek informations. I am just urging you, please learn how to speak the language. And when you do, you'll be able to navigate yourself or your way around easily. So I'm just saying, I'm yet to see a brother or a sister who have moved from the diaspora to the African continent. I'm yet to see one who speaks fluent Twi, who speaks fluent Ewe, who speaks fluent Ga, who speaks fluent Dagomba, Dagati, whatever language you can lay your hands on. Okay? If there is anybody out there who can speak, I can speak Ga, Twi, and Ewe. Okay, I can write in Ga. I cannot write in Twi or in Ewe, but I can equally take any Ga document, any Twi document, and read it, just because I've learned how to read and write in Ga. Learn the alphabet: A, B, D, E, F, G, E, J, K, O, M, N, O, O, P, R, C, T, U, V, W, Z. Learn these things. Learn how to write. Okay? Now, after you've done this, come and let us talk. Come and let us go and seek information. Because most of the things that they tell you, most of the things that you hear may be different. You may have party A telling you this, you have party B telling you something else. Most of the stories that we've heard are absolutely wrong. They were just folklores. They were just stories made up by humans. So let us be very, very careful if you want to find the truth. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. Learn how to speak the language, learn the culture, learn the traditions before diving into the African spirituality. All right. Thank you.